benefits you get out of your mutual funds and your other investments, while also protecting them. So what I'm talking about are called notes. Depending on who your financial planner or whichever financial company you work through, they may be called structured notes or something along those lines, but note is definitely the key word there. And these are securities that are like mutual funds, usually with defined terms, meaning they're not open-ended like a mutual fund you hold on to forever until maybe they dilute the fund or and sell it and break it down if something happens. And they usually carry various options. So let's see what notes are, what some of the benefits are, as well as some of the downsides, because as with any investment, there's always a catch. You never know what's going to happen. So what is a note? I think most people are probably familiar with the term note, especially when it comes to being a legal document or an agreement or some sort of investment. The concept is the same. Like a certificate of deposit is also a note. Certificate, note, same thing. So think along those lines. A certificate of deposit is something that's usually set up by a bank that says you put so much money in for so long, we will give you so much interest when you get at the end of the term. Notes are similar, but instead of simply putting the money in and saying you're going to get this much money, they're going to invest that money. And it could be in one specific stock, it could be in bonds and stuff like that, but I'm more interested in the stock aspect of it. Because that's what most mutual funds look at. They may have some bonds, but the whole concept is it may be some sort of mixed investment or it may be a very targeted investment, depending on what sort of note you're looking at. They have set terms. They could be as short as 3 months. It could be something hot that the investment company is looking at. It could be very long term. Royal Bank of Canada has a note that is 15 years. And that one in particular is callable every 5 years, which is another point I want to make about the notes, that not only are they just like a mutual fund, but maybe with a set term, they've got a lot of different options, callable being one of them. So what are some of these options? What are the benefits you can get from some of these options? One of them is called a buffer. Now, an adroit person would know that a buffer is some sort of barrier. It's some sort of gap. In this case, it's a protection. When you think about like a seawall or something like that, that is a protection. It's a buffer from something happening. Fences are buffers. Well, what the buffer does is they say, we're going to invest your money in this thing. And as you know with any investment, it could go up. It could go down. Well, the way the buffer works is it says, you know what? We know there's a chance this investment will go down. So we're going to put a buffer of 10, 20, 30, 50%, which means if your investment goes down, you put, say, $1,000 in and it loses 30% of its value, but your buffer is 50%, you never lose money. Imagine that. If you put your money in a mutual fund and the fund went down, you still have the same number of shares, but your value is gone. It's just gone, just like buying stocks. If the value goes down, it's gone. In this case, you will not lose money as long as you stay within that buffer. Another option that some of these notes have is you can actually gain more than what they expect the stock to do. So say, for instance, you've got a mutual fund, and as they always say, past performance is no guarantee of future results. But theoretically, things are going to go up, at least in the long term. Now, mind you, these are short term, but things should go up. What some of the notes will specifically say, you will get a certain percentage, or we expect it to make a certain percentage. And sometimes they will have what Morgan Stanley in particular calls a leverage factor. In other words, we're so confident that this stock is going to do well. Your stock starts here, your investment I should say starts here, and it goes up 5%. We expect everything to actually have gone so well, we're going to have a leverage factor of 1, 2, 3 point something, which basically is percentages. So 3, in the sense, if it was 3.1, that's 310%. So if your investment actually only went up by 5, at the end, you would actually get 15%. That sounds like a pretty good deal. Of course, again, no guarantees. There can also be caps to say that they will only guarantee so much. I also mentioned before, some of them are callable. Callable ones are interesting, and they actually can be more beneficial in some ways. A callable note says that at some point, we may cancel this deal. We're just going to say, you know what, we're ending it here. It's supposed to be 3 years. It's going to be callable every quarter, and at any point they could say, okay, that's it. The difference is they're guaranteeing you every time they call that they're either going to give you some percentage, or they're going to give you or they're going to close it out. Either way. So you could make 3% every quarter, and then they decide to cancel it when it's down or when it's up or whatever, and then depending on the terms of the note, that's what you end up with. But you've made some money along the way. So depending on the situation, it could be very useful. And of course, like I mentioned, the Royal Bank of Canada one, that's 15 years. They're only going to call it every 5 years. So now, not everything has a good side. You know, an adroit investor knows that anything could happen, and it will. And of course, this is a structured investment. This is some security, and that's one of the key words, because securities can sometimes mean danger in the investment world, that somebody is managing this money. There's a group of fund managers, et cetera, that are using your money to buy and sell, and they're looking at certain stocks, whatever the note is based on. And anything could happen. Now, because it's structured, though, they're the ones who have the most to gain or potentially lose, but it's always benefits the house, right? Whenever you gamble. So same concept. What they're doing with your money is they're doing trades constantly. And you're hoping that in the end your money's going to go up. Well, they're doing, I almost want to say it's a database term of puts and gets versus the right term, but I know put is one of them, and then there's different options. Basically doing options trading with your money. If you are a person who is actively trading, you might be able to make more money on your own because there's going to be costs involved. Not only is that money going up and down and they're figuring out how to trade it, there's going to be fees. Every investment has got some sort of fees. So the question is, are those fees going to outweigh how much you're going to gain? The other thing with those callable notes, with it ending early, you may have expected that over a period of time that you're going to make so much money, and you're watching this thing go up and down, and you're thinking, oh, well, gosh, over 3 years that'll be great, and they stop it after a year. But the one thing I like about these is all of us have time frames that we have in mind, and that's where I want to end this, is when we invest, are we looking at 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road? Well, now that I'm looking at smaller terms now, 10 to 15 years tops, I may want some of these short terms. And that's where the benefit to something like a note is for me, is I can say, I want to take a risk, but I can limit my risk for a set time for 5 years, hopefully with some sort of protection. So if you actively manage your investments, maybe consider, this may not be something to consider. If you've got short-term goals and you want to try to maximize your returns while minimizing your risk, this may be for you. But as always, talk to a financial investor, learn more about it, and you can be adroit with notes as well. Thank you.
All right.